Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of the Dragzine Podcast. This week, I got on the other side of me, Mr. Terry McMillen. Terry, what's going on?
Not too much, man. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. The season, at least for me, is starting to ramp up more and more as much as we can, and things are getting back normalish with COVID. So I'm getting ready to get out and cover more races, and hopefully get both of my piles back on the track and racing soon.
There you go. I'll tell you what, it's definitely been a long year, with this COVID. It's just really messed a lot of things up, and and it's going to be great just to see the country get back to normal, where we can all go out and have a dinner or go to races and enjoy yourselves, and looking forward to that day happening. So it's hopefully around the corner, quicker than what we hope.
COVID has completely messed with my sense of time. It seems like it's been like 5 years. 2020 was like 5 years long, it felt like.
Well, I know. I think for everybody, it's it's just corporate America is upside down because of it. Fans and racers, we're all upside down, and basically everything in any industry is upside down, because everything was just taken away. Like all of a sudden you had everything that you want, you could do anything you want at any given time, and all of a sudden the carpet's pulled out from underneath you, and now you got to stay home, you got to stay quarantined, and it's just people are just wanting to get back out and doing something. So it's pretty exciting to know that some daylight is around the corner.
It's interesting. I've been to 2 events in 2021 so far, working on the Flow Sports side of things, doing on air. U.S. Street Nationals and then the World Door Slammer Nationals, both in Florida. You would have thought it was a normal year. The amount of fans at the track was, it didn't, like, it wasn't like when I was at Vegas for the Super Streetcar Nationals, where it was thin or they couldn't have anybody. People were there living life and taking precautions, but it was like, it gave me a little bit of hope that you said that, all right, things are going to get back to normal finally.
Yeah, I think, just an NHRA's, case, I think they did a great job last year of getting races in, and trying to do the best they can, manage the amount of people that were coming to the races, and everybody took the precautions that they needed to do. And I think NHRA did a great job, which has allowed them to race as much as they did last year in comparison to what other industries might have done. But, it's all about, we all want to be safe, and certainly, nobody wants to deal with this COVID thing. So the coolest thing in the world is going to be getting this thing behind us and moving forward. I got my COVID shot, so now I don't know that I'm Superman yet, but I'm going to feel immune to that, and hopefully go on and just start living a normal life. I love it without a face mask on, and heck, I don't recognize half the people I see anymore with the mask on. So it's like it's been really crazy, but I'm looking forward to life getting back to normal as we know it.
Now, you said you don't know if you'll be Superman. However, driving a Top Fuel dragster, I think at least puts you in the same echelon as being Superman, because it's indescribably crazy. What made you want to say, you know what, screw a normal life, I want to be a professional race car driver? Like, how did that whole journey for you begin?
Well, I knew at a very young age that, I grew up in the muscle car era. So I grew up in Chicago, Illinois. So everybody had race cars and street rods, and it was just, overwhelming experience with cars. And so at a young age, I started working on these cars with some of these guys. And on the weekends, I'd work in the garage with my dad. We'd make extra money. I had 8 brothers and sisters. So he wanted to make sure that everybody was taken care of. So I learned how to paint cars and how to build motors and all that stuff with him on the weekends. And then, it just kind of parlayed into, this is what I want to do. And a real quick story, I had a teacher, and my school book back then was drag racing magazines, Super Chevy, Carcraft, all the magazines. And I know most people don't even know what that is anymore today because of the internet, but fortunately that was my school book. And I knew that I wanted to race. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I knew that I was able to build anything with my hands and make it work. So I struggled in school for quite a long time. And then I had this teacher, and she said, look, she was my English teacher. She says, I know this isn't your area. This isn't your passion being in this school. But she says, we got to do something to get you through school and help teach you, the things that you need to know for the future. She said, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you write stories on these racing magazines. And then you're going to give me the racing magazine. I'm going to read it. And then I'm going to turn around and grade you on it. Well, have to tell you, from that day on, it turned my life around, because it was like, I found somebody that had an interest in what I'd liked. And it wasn't just about history or anything like that. I lived in real time, and I wanted to work in real time. And she allowed me that opportunity to get graded on that. And from that day on, it turned my life around. And I've never looked back, but because of her, it made a difference. And went on, graduate and get some college and all that other stuff. So it's, I'm really fortunate. But again, I grew up in the muscle car era, man. Every weekend on the radio, every day on the radio, you hear Sunday at US 30 drag strip, and and in Byron, Illinois, and all these tracks are around us. And so it was like, it just seemed to be a natural. You didn't hear anything about the NASCAR or anything like that. It was all drag racing. And so it seemed like two things happened there. They had cool cars, and they always had the hot girls, and I wanted both. So here I am.
It's interesting. I write a lot of stories about a lot of different people. And like, that is literally the main thread or threads. Family has cars, interest in building things, interesting in mechanical, desire to race. All four of those things lead us all to this life. And it's so hard. And that kudos to that teacher for seeing that. It's very hard, because I had the same deal, passion, psychotic addiction to racing, if you want to call it that, but it draws you in, and that's all you freaking think about.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I mean, I could tell you anything you want to know in every one of those magazines, because I read them front to back until the cover was wore out, because it took 30 days before the next issue came out. So it was a really good read, and it certainly helped me in the future doing some of the things that we do today. But yeah, I mean, it was just the perfect time. I grew up in Illinois. Mr. Norm's, was right down the road. You had Nicky Chevrolet. You had everybody around you that just, said, hey, you need to go race cars, or you need to play with cars. And so that's what we did. And to this day, I still play with cars.
Yeah, it's the only difference, I think, between other men and people like us is just we never grew up playing with our toys, just got bigger and you can drive them.
A little more expensive, but they're worth it.
Yeah, I definitely, anytime I spend a boatload of cash on car parts or anything else, I realize I could be wasting my time doing something a whole lot different. At least there's something like you get something out of it, the friendships, the building of it, and like the muscle car era to me, my dad grew up in that area. He talks about that literally in front of the gas station he worked out of his brother's. It was like American graffiti every weekend night.
Every day.
To me, that would have I didn't get to experience that, but I love, I can almost dream it and feel it, what you got to go through. That had to be amazing.
Well, it is. I mean, it's something, it's definitely back in time, but it's definitely, it's just the way it really was, and everybody, everybody had some kind of a cool car, and it was just then, trying to figure out how to make it go faster. Some of them were, jacked up high in the air on all four corners, and then some of them were up in the back end, some were up in the gasser version, but it was just that transition timing in motorsports and in racing industry that we were all going through. And so trying to figure out where we were going to get the best weight transfer and how we were going to make everything work was really, really intriguing. And it just, but I worked at a gas station. Started at 13 years old. And, it was just a place to be. Everybody'd come in, we'd work on the cars on the lift after hours, get them all ready to go, and then, go out and play later that night somewhere. So, it was just a time that I don't think we'll ever see that again, but certainly one that I'm glad I didn't miss.
I think we're in a different version of that time now with what's available from the manufacturers, because nowadays, if you've got enough cash or a high enough line of credit, you can walk into a dealership and buy a 9-second car with a warranty and just go drive it.
Right. Oh, 100%. It was like, you think about it, back in 66, 67, you could buy a Nova Super Sport, 4-speed, big motor in it and all that stuff. And you paid like $3,500 for it, it was like nothing. Back then, $3,500 is, probably like 60 grand today, but you didn't have those options like you just alluded to. You had to, you took what the dealership gave you. There was no warranty on it. You tore the transmission up in the first week. It was your baby. You owned it. And, today, I mean, you get a Demon or a Hellcat or, Camaro and go out there and run these things, and you hurt it and you take it back to the dealership and it's under warranty and they fix it for you. So it's not a bad program, but boy, you certainly pay for that.
Yeah, you pay for the convenience of being able to break something and have someone else mess with it. And then, God forbid, if you avoid the warranty, and then you're in a whole different level of hurt.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
At the same time, it fascinates me always, kind of looking back and seeing what, I had Herb McAllister on the show, and he talked about, old school pro stock racing, and like this, there was no blueprint, there was no roadmap like there is today, where you can go on the internet and type in how to make an LS1 run nines, and you just get pages of results.
Right.
Back in the day, you guys just had to literally trial and error and figure it out.
Well, I remember back, porting cylinder heads, the whole idea back then was to make them smooth, but, and we would make them so smooth, they were like mirrors, but really that was a bad thing. We didn't know that back then because, but today, that was a bad thing. We shouldn't have been doing that, but it was like the thing to do. You'd spend 40, 60 hours polishing a set of heads that you could shave in, and then turn around and now you learn that, well, that didn't really work out real well for you, that you need to be a little more porous in there and to make, fuel animize. So it's the thing that we, like you said, we didn't have a blueprint. Everything you did was trial and error. And, if you make the car pick up in any way that you could, that's what you did. And, it wasn't like there was, a variety of camshafts at the time and computers to make that camshaft up for you and tell you what it's going to be. You just, constantly tried things to try to pick up, an extra few horsepower.
I always try with my guests to do a little bit of research so I don't sound like a complete idiot when I'm talking to them. Partial idiot's acceptable. Complete idiot doesn't work. Now, that's trial and error. Learn that one the hard way. Now, you've raced in both the major sanction organizations and Top Fuel, and you've won them both. A lot of racers aren't going to, they don't have that opportunity these days, unfortunately, because the IHRA is gone. Well, gone from, doing fuel racing. What was the difference between, because I remember growing up watching TV, you'd see guys bounce back and forth. What was the big difference bouncing back and forth from your perspective when you got to live that and bounce between the organizations?
Well, I think IHRA was, for me, it was a really great place to race the car, and it taught us a lot. We learned a lot about the car, kind of learned what we needed to have, and we didn't have to do that with a 24 race schedule. It was more so a 12 race schedule. So achieving the funding that you needed to have and to go out there and do things and learn, we were able to do. We made the transition over to NHRA, but we weren't sure that we could do that, and that is, there was a handful of cars in IHRA, and sometimes they would run NHRA, but, pretty much that group was, we ran together, and then, we keep trying to see if we can qualify. And when you look at the NHRA side of things, you're looking at teams like Schumacher and Coletta, who have a warehouse full of parts and people, and it's like, how can you even compete? I mean, you walk in Don Schumacher's shop and you're defeated already because, this guy's got every piece of equipment, everything that you can imagine. John Force is no different, so it's quite intimidating when you go in and you see what they all have. So you look at the big picture and say, well, first off, I got to come up with the money to run 24 races, but more so, I also have to figure out how to compete against these guys. And when you don't have the budget, to have 2 or 3 crew chiefs and 10 or 12 people working on the car, you learn that you have to do a lot of it yourself and do it the hard way. And so that's kind of what we did. We transitioned up through there. Once we realized that we could at least qualify for the race, that was the first thing at NHRA. Once we did that, then we kept trying to perfect it and make it a little bit better. We had a couple of times that were really great. We had some times that were really tough. But towards the end here, we brought Rob Wendland in and formed a team. And at that point in time, I felt that, we were unstoppable. We had we'd built our own chassis in-house, had a great car. Rob did a phenomenal job of tuning the car. The team did a great job keeping it maintained. So it was just a matter of now going out there and reaping the benefits from that. And unfortunately, the season got cut short, last year. But it certainly was no small a hurdle. I mean, it was a large deal to compete in NHRA coming from the IHRA side, but more so just because of the competition, the level of talent that was in the NHRA side, because it wasn't just one crew chief like you had on each team in the NHRA, IHRA. Now you had multiple crew chiefs and you have multiple combinations and parts and guys making stuff that, no, it wasn't even on the market yet, and yet the car's running better because they have that. And when you can do that type of stuff and make your stuff in-house, you have control of a lot of things. And that is the one thing that Rob and I had learned and discussed, is that, we built our in-house chassis. We did the front half of one the year before, 19, and then in 20, we built a brand new car in our shop, and we really didn't change a lot of stuff, but we changed the chassis a little bit, and that chassis is what woke our car up. It wasn't that it was same engine combination, everything was the same. It just, there were some things that we knew that we needed to change. And you think about it, they're not going to sell you the top of the line best stuff that they're running today. They're going to sell you the stuff maybe they ran last year. And that's just business, because obviously they want to win. They want that edge. And so we learned from that time on that, we need to start doing things more so in the house and trying to make our program better, because it's the only way it's going to get better. We can't just continue to copy what other people are doing and then using that to make it work. So, we started there, and then we started with some clutch fingers and things like that. And before you knew it, we ended up with a combination that was pretty deadly. We're top 5 going into St. Louis last year, and then we couldn't compete in any more races. But we had a car that could have definitely been a number 3 car. Had things stayed on course, and we could continue to race, because the car was just that good, and our combination, our package, if you will, was just that good. So why it's still the past, it's still real, and that was a great time, and we're hoping that we somehow, some way can find the funding we need to go out there and reunite and do this program again, because I think we have a solid program that's going to make us run well with everybody. But like I said, it wasn't easy. It was just a series of moves and trying new things and figuring out what's going to work, because we don't have a clutch dyno, we don't have a blower dyno, we don't have any of that stuff. Our dyno was the racetrack. We'd show up, we'd unload the car, we'd make a pass, and we'd learn from it. And then sometimes we didn't get into Q4, but here at the end, we started going down the track right off the bat in Q1. So now we had opportunities to try different things, because we knew we weren't going to get bumped out of the show. And so that just opened up the doors for other opportunities and other things to try. And then, you give that to Rob Wendland, he's going to make something happen. And he did.
I find it interesting that, I guess I never really thought of it this way with the chassis. Is there, do the chassis really make that much of a difference in how you tweak them? Because I always would think, I know chassis make up a certain point of it, but I didn't realize, I guess, when you're making that much horsepower, that the tiny little custom tweaks made that much of a difference.
Well, I can tell you, you can definitely tell the difference when you come out with a car that's got brand new tubing on it versus a car that you raced, half a year. Like, typically every half year you put a new front end on a car. And that was because the tubing was fatiguing. You think about it, the tube is bowing and then it's coming the other way. So it's no different than an airplane wing. It's just moving a lot under an unusual amount of load. And so what happens is you put a new front end on that car the second half, and all of a sudden the car picks up again and starts running really well. So what we learned was that by doing the modifications that that was made to the front half and adding some of those modifications to the back half, it just changed the game. It just definitely changed the game of the way it is. And we didn't change combinations on the motor or blower or anything like that. Same stuff, just a different combination on the chassis. And so, the chassis on these things, they got to be free, non-binding, if you will. But, we ran in 19, we ran the same front half on the car the whole entire year. Most people can't do that. They were changing, even our cars before that, we were changing our car. We'd run it all the way to Indy. And before Indy, we put a front half on it, and finish the year out that way. And we ran our design that Rob created. We had ran that, and we finished the 2019 season with that, and we had very little fraction in the chassis at all. So we had indicators on there, and things like that we could check. We measured it every day, at the racetrack, at the end of the weekend. We kept track of all that stuff, and that led us to building the better chassis.
I guess that makes sense with the front half. And now that you think about it, with how much the way that those cars kind of bend and twist and what they do, that it's like putting fresh, other like engine parts in or something like that engine, where it brings back it to within spec. So that definitely makes sense. And that's interesting. I never thought about how like little slight tweaks could help, it's the little tweaks that help the other things down the line, what you can do with the clutch and the tune up and traction and stuff like that.
Sure. I mean, you pick up a couple numbers on the starting line. Well, that's going to translate to big numbers at the end, and so that's what it all boiled down to. Our car would always run from the 330 out. It would run amazing, but we could never get the car to 60 foot. So when we went to work to building this new chassis and this new design, it certainly turned the combination around. Our 60 foots came in play, and then all of a sudden this car starts running numbers like it never had before. We got a number one qualifier, something we've never had. It was always a dream to get to that point, but we had it. We just had a combination, and you got to look at it. These cars, not only do they bow up and down, but they're like a snake. Also, there's nothing going straight about it. You think there's a lot of long tubing out there. You know, there's some cross bracing in there and all that. That thing is going side to side and up and down at the same time. So there's a lot of energy that's being wasted when it's snaking and bobbing and weaving like that. So if you can tighten that energy up and use that energy in that chassis, then the car's going to run faster.
Makes sense. Now, you spent some time racing alcohol cars, correct?
I did.
I always find that interesting because, to me, top alcohol funny car is one of my favorite classes, because you can hear them anywhere on the property, when they're on the track, and they're a handful. They're like a pro mod with a funny car body, because they want to do everything but go straight. How does it compare driving one of those to a nitro car?
Well, I mean, there's a big difference. The funny car, for sure. I mean, you're in control of the clutch and everything. You bring it up to 6,000 RPMs or whatever you're going to lead the line at, and you have to physically let the clutch out to get the car to go down the track, and then you have to hit the shift points, and all that. In a fuel car, not so much. You take your foot off the clutch, you stage it with your foot on a brace inside, and you bump it into the light, and you just master throttle from on idle, and then the computer takes over, and the cannon allows fingers to come in at a certain time. So from that point of it, it's different. What's really the big difference was the amount of speed and how fast things happen. I mean, you look at a top fuel car, you're 106 miles an hour, 104 miles an hour at 60 feet, and a funny car, not so much. But the funny car was a short wheelbase, handful of drive, and that was always made it intriguing and exciting for me. And I would have raced the top fuel funny car. It just cost another $500,000 that we just didn't have to do that. So it became very economical if we wanted to stay in the sport, to build a top fuel dragster and go out there and run that. And so that's what we ended up doing. But yeah, I mean, Rob just picked up a couple funny car bodies, and we're like making a joke the other day. It's like, man, we ought to build a funny car, that even if it's a nostalgia car, let's just go do something. But ultimately, I mean, I really enjoyed the funny car. Like you said, the alcohol cars are unique. You wind them up, you just do a lot with them to get power out of them. And, you can't beat the king of speed. And that's the dragster. I mean, it's just two different driving styles. The first time I was in a dragster and the car made a move, you sit behind the rear wheel, in the rear wheels in the funny car, you're right there. So you feel this thing happening really quick. And a dragster, it accelerates so much faster. And then you feel the car make a move, and it's like, man, you want to turn the steering wheel like you're trying to chop wood, because that's what you do in a funny car. Well, that's the worst thing in the world to do on a dragster, because it wants to lay on its side. Never did that, but I mean, I got it close to where I was rocking it pretty good. When I realized at that point in time, man, I got to slow everything down. We actually went back and changed the gearbox on the dragster as slow as we could possibly get it, because it was just a normal reaction coming all the funny car for all those years that, you just wanted to snap the steering wheel, and in a dragster, that's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah, with the top fuel car, it's baby movements, baby movements. You got to finesse it. You got to, talk gently to it. You can't yell at it. A funny car, you're beating it like a misbehaving dog to keep it to just kind of do what you want it to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's and it's a challenge to get it to do that, So, I mean, like I said, I love funny cars. I do. But, when you look at numbers, the king of speed is the place for us anyway.
Yeah, and it's really amazing when you sit there like in person, because NHRA drag racing is best consumed in person. I like watching it on NHRA.tv because the coverage is awesome, but nothing beats being there and you get to see the speed differences between the vehicles. And like trying to shoot pictures of a Top Fuel car it's hard. Like
It's a knack. It's a knack.
It's like you have to honestly really get used and adjust to the speed from the outside. What's it like inside the car trying to adjust to something that moves like that?
You just gotta, it's crazy because as a driver, I swear that when I'm in that car, I can see the fans. I feel like I'm going 55 miles an hour and I can wave to everybody. But on the other side, your mind's saying, hey, stupid, you're going 300 feet, a second here. And so it's like, lots happening really quick. And so it's just amazing how your brain makes the transition in the driving habits. But yeah, I mean, it feels like everything happens at 55 miles an hour or 60 miles an hour. But automatically your body goes into a mode and it just starts doing what it needs to do. And it's like you get to the end of the track sometimes, it's like, man, this car moved all over here and I did this and that, and I did this. And then, man, what did I do this or did I do that? And it's like, you start checking things just because it becomes a habit. And that is a nice thing, a nice safety feature, but ultimately, there's just a lot to be said for going out there and having the opportunity to do that and making things happen. But it's there's nothing like it, man. There's just nothing like it.
Can you recall a time when you were in a fuel car, maybe it's one of the first times you're racing it, where things started to get out of hand and you had that moment where you're like, oh, this is not going according to plan? What's that like?
I don't know that I ever had that. I'll give you, I got my license in Rockingham, in Evan Knowles' car. And they told me that if I made this pass, it was a Friday night, if I made the pass, they'd give me my license, allow me to compete for the rest of the weekend in a fuel car. So I get in the car, I think I went 477, 321, my first pass. So the next day, qualifying, we're in the show pretty good actually. And then the next day, we go out there and first round qualifying, I don't know who I was, but I ran and made another good pass. And then the third one, I went down the track and I got down there and made a move and I lifted. And all of a sudden, I think it was Dom Lagana was in the other lane and came flying by me, just scared the heck out of me. It's like, what just happened? Because I thought I was getting hit with all that noise. I've never been on the other side of a car, having a Top Fuel car going wide open past you when you're at a dead stop. And it was just an amazing deal. But, my only mishap, I guess, if you will, was in Houston a few years ago when, we got to the finish line and then the motor came apart and then cut a tire down. And, Tony was on the side of me and I was trying to make sure that I didn't get in his way. Plus, I also knew I didn't want to go flipping down the track. So, we kind of headed towards the wall. And that was the only real issue that I ever really had where, it's like, this is a reality check. But ultimately, I walked away from that thing. The only thing I did was broke the front of my finger. And I'm not even sure how I did that. But, I got out of the car like I should be hurt and all that. But I felt fine. And I was never sore, never had a bruise or anything like that. But that was probably, the biggest pucker up moment, I guess, if you will, that, this thing's we're going to hit the wall because we're trying to head that way to get this thing against guardrail so we don't get in anybody else's way. And that was it. So other than that, knock on wood, I haven't had any of those situations. Yeah, a lot of big fires and explosions, but nothing like, where it's catastrophic like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're not a human highlight reel like John Force of destroying tons and tons and tons of equipment.
I'd have been out of business about the first one.
Yeah, I'm a huge John Force fan, but man, that guy, It's not good when you're a repeat customer with Steve Evans on the and they walked away videos. That's
No,
not
I
where you want
know.
to be.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a few of our explosions that were pretty big and nasty, but none of them, nothing really bad other than just expensive and great highlight wheels, but nothing like a John Force or some of those guys that have had some really wild rides, John's a great guy, man. I love him to death, and what a guy he is for our sport. So it's good to see him still out there, running that car up and down the track.
What's it like when a 10,000 horsepower motor decides to do a accelerated deconstruction that's unplanned behind you? What's that like?
Yeah, it's really strange because the car is accelerating at an incredible rate, and then all of a sudden you're just slammed onto the dashboard. I mean, your head literally. When I'm in that car and leave the starting line, I can't get my hand between my seatbelt and my jacket. But when that thing decides to unload and come apart, you literally want to lunge forward, hit your head on the dashboard, if you will. And then you already know that some stuff's going on, and you're trying to do everything you can to keep it safe and stop it. But I've had them where it's lifted hard enough, lifted the back end right off the ground on an explosion. It starts bouncing around all over the place and things like that. But it's just it leaves you with a headache. And other than that, nothing really. I mean, I've had a few burns and stuff like that, but nothing on the fire suit, nothing on the skin or anything like that. It's just at 300 miles an hour, you would think the fire would stay behind you, but it's wrong, because in the cockpit is negative air.
Oh yeah.
So what happens is all that fire and all that stuff wants to find its way inside the car with you, and that's why DSR came up with the canopy, to try to stop some of that, and ultimately, it's just a fact of life that it's negative air in that cockpit area, and at 330 miles an hour, fire will go forward, and it's just that's incredible in itself. But yeah, explosions are just the minute they happen, you just know, you're just hoping that the risk is minimal to the parts, so that you can come back and race the next weekend or the next race. So it's I mean, there was times we were hurting stuff before I even had the invoice to pay for it. And then leave there that weekend. Now, not only do I got to pay for one blower, I also got to buy another one. So now I owe for two blowers in the next 30 days. And so, those are the things that, I think as a single team and an owner that just doesn't truly have all the big budget money. Those are the things that, the hurdles that you come across and say, like, man, now what am I going to do? In fact, back in Charlotte, I had one bad one, and it's like, that was it. I'm done. I can't afford this anymore. I just blown up two motors that weekend, and I didn't have the money to pay for the parts I just bought, and let alone two more motors. And so, I was walking away that day, and it was the fans that just, came back to me at the pits, and we sat and they talked and just, made me come back, because it was just the passion and their passion for what we do. And they're just, NHRA fans are incredible. And I just don't think that people really ever understand that, how motivating they are to us, as well as, we are to them. And I met many, many great people, in my career in NHRA, as we travel around, and racing. So it's just been a blessing, because they kept me into the sport, kept me going when I was down. And when I was up, they were there also to celebrate with us. So it was pretty cool.
This is something I've always kind of wondered, because in bracket racing, we all have our own routine we go through. We're checking gauges, what we do. And sometimes, things will happen that will pull you out of your routine, and you got to kind of figure out how to overcome that. Driving a nitro car is 110 million times more intensive than any bracket car. How do you deal with, as a driver, when those things happen? Because, they're going to happen. A car might not start right. There might be an issue. I mean, there's a million and one things that can go wrong. What do you do as a driver to kind of make sure that doesn't affect you?
I mean, there's times that things are going to happen. Sometimes, they hold you up, pulling you into the light because there's an issue they're trying to deal with. The downside is you don't know what that issue is. We never wore a radio, so we don't really need to communicate that. It's like when it comes time to stage in the car and all that, it's my job, and I don't really need anybody, in my head. And so we just basically did it that way. But what has to happen is that, even though it was a delay or whatever the hiccup was, you just have to go in there and you have to take a deep breath, turn that top light on, take a deep breath, double check yourself, and then throw all your fuel on, and then put that car in the lights and just wait on it. But there's a time where you just got to take that deep breath, clear your head for a moment, and then go back to your normal routine once you get that top light bulb on.
Yeah, I kind of figured at that level, it's just got to be something where you're more concentrated on what's going on in front of you. You can't worry what's going on from about here back because you can't control it. There's no switches you can flip inside that car or anything.
No, there's no miracle cure for that, and that's the crazy part of it. So, as a driver, you're sitting in there and that you're kind of like taking a little bit longer to get to the line than normal. And then, so then you got to be careful that you're not getting in there and rushing yourself, and you're trying to stay into your same routine. So for us, it was for me, we just basically, we got the top light on, took a deep breath, turned the fuel system on, checked everything, and then bumped it in there. And at that point in time, you're refocused on what your job is, and you go out there and do it.
And I've crewed on teams before where things have gone awry with the radial tire car. And I could literally, like, it was stuff either going on in the other lane or something like track related. I could physically see our driver getting agitated, and I would have to pop in front of the windshield, be like, all right, just calm down, deep breath. We're good. Just just don't worry. The car's still running. We're not on fire yet. Let's just let that happen. Just because as a driver, you're so amped up that something like that will pull you out of routine, and it can mess with you.
But really well, it's funny because, we had the big screen TV in NHRA, and it's like, I forget what race it was, but anyway, one race we were at there, and I accused my crew, that, there was a dilemma going on, and we got the car staged, and I kind of glanced at the big screen TV for whatever reason. I see my crew running backwards, like, oh, this thing's going to blow up or something, and then we staged the car, hit the gas. But, it's always been a standing joke, because we don't know what's going on. And I don't want to know what's going on, basically, because that would get into your routine. You just have to go back and refocus and go back and doing what you do, and just, remember all the steps that you do. Once you hit the gas, everything is, back on track. So it just, to me, it's like once that switch starts, we turn that motor on, we start it, it turns the switch on in my head at that point in time. And then it's just, basically a routine. Try to be a machine, and do the same thing every time.
I've been on the starting line where I have shooting pictures, doing coverage, and I see bad things happening. Like, and the driver, you can tell the driver's asking the guy on the radio, what's going on? And the crew guy, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Meanwhile, the crew is in like full thrash mode trying to fix it. Don't worry about it. Just hold on 1 second. Let us get this figured out.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, I think we've all seen it, and, that's good crew chiefs, they're not going to put anybody in harm's way. And, that's one thing with Rob is that, we always went to the starting line. We never had to shut our car off. We never had any of those issues like that where we had to worry about that. And the team did a great job preparing it. And so, for the most part, 9 times out of 10, there was no dilemmas. There was sometimes a little bit of a delay, one area or another, but nothing major, where you would have concern. I think my biggest concern ever was, like, I forget even who we were racing, but it took them a very long time to stage the car. And now I'm thinking to myself, man, we're running out of fuel, because these things drink it, faster than you can pour it. And I'm thinking to myself, we're running out of fuel right now, and this thing's going to be really light. And, is it A, going to carry the front end, or B, am I going to get down there and all of a sudden to grenade a motor because I'm out of fuel? And fortunately enough that, we went down the track, and as we got to the finish line, just lifted a little bit early, but it was enough to get us through. So, but those are the things that, when those things happen, that start you thinking in a whole nother time, when you're sitting there looking at your clock and saying, hey, we're 15 seconds longer than what we should have been, or 20 seconds longer. We just burned another gallon and a half of fuel, so where are we at? Because we try to run these cars so you have enough fuel in the tank at the end to get through fuel check. But obviously you don't want to leave too much in there because it's weight, and you want to get rid of that. So there's a real fine line, when teams run the car. You'll see some teams, like, let's just say we're a minute 45 car. You'll see some teams that are a 2-minute car. So we'll wait 15 seconds before we start our car so that we get to the starting line at the same time and we're all ready and nobody's hung out to dry. Because again, that's based on what you do with the fuel in the front of the car and things like that.
So we're getting ready to kick off the last portion of the show. And before I do that, I've got to thank this episode's sponsors, Airflow Research, the original CNC ported cylinder head company. From the street enthusiast to the hardcore racer, AFR has designed a cylinder head for your application with one goal in mind: just go fast. Now, with that being said, we talked about this before, and it was something I wanted to kind of get out there because you guys are still actively looking for a sponsor because unfortunately COVID did hit Emily hard enough they had to back out. Did it even ever enter your mind that you were just going to stop trying to race, period, when that happened?
No, I mean, it hasn't. And we're working diligently, not only, the people that work with us, but, the fans, everybody's working extremely hard, giving us leads and we're following up on leads and sending packages out and all that. Failure wasn't an option. It's still not an option. We're still fighting to the very end. It's just getting, dicey because, I have truck and trailer payments due every month that I have nothing coming in to cover that. So it's getting to the point now where, we got to start doing some different things here to make that work out. But the biggest thing is COVID hit. Amley, they suspended our contract, and there's like 3 years left on our contract. So, we felt we were in pretty good shape going into it prior to COVID. But then when COVID hit, oil, 400 billion people did drive their cars last year. That meant, working from home. So no oil was being sold. And then you look at it and the aviation industry is down. So some of the byproducts used from making fuel, aren't readily available. And then, now the oil companies are getting rations put on them of what they can produce a year or a month. And so when you start looking at all those different signs that are adding up, it's really difficult for an oil company right now to be in there making money because of the restrictions that they've been hit with. And, certainly price increases. I mean, I think across the board in the last, probably 4 months, I think every month there's been a huge price increase because base stock's changing and, the ad packs are changing and all these different things. So the combination of price increases and everything else that's going on has definitely hit the oil industry hard. And, in my opinion is that, while it wasn't great for Terry McMillen and Amley, I certainly acknowledge why they did what they did and commend them for that because, people, you can't be laying off people and having a race car going up and down the racetrack, so they did what they had to do. We mutually agreed to what they were going to do. And hopefully that down the road, that all changes as the COVID goes away and things start getting back to normal. But for sponsorship, Chase, it's been, always know it's a challenge. But I think that, the biggest challenge that we're running into today is that when you run into companies today, they may even have the money to sponsor the car. They're leery of spending any money this year until they see what 2021 is going to bring them because of the fact of the impact of all the other stuff. And face it, you can't even get parts for anything anymore, whether it be furniture or whether it be race car parts. Everything's back ordered. Everything's, really the whole system of everything is just strained. So it's a little more difficult to find marketing partners at this moment. But I believe that we have some opportunities for next year for sure. I just got to figure out how to get my truck and trailer payments covered and keeping Rob Wendland payment covered to make that happen. And so that's a challenge that we have right at the moment. But I definitely plan on coming back and going out there and putting our package back together and going out there and racing because I really believe we have a package and a team to be reckoned with once we have that opportunity again.
Now it's interesting. I had a other question I was going to ask you, but I want to go in a different direction with this. Being a smaller team, do you feel like you have a better ability to bring a non-traditional or a different sponsor to the sport because you guys have the ability to think outside the box? You don't have a massive conglomerate of things to run. Do you think that's something where you could kind of go to a boutique company and be like, we could bring you into a market and give you a unique opportunity experience to touch a lot of fans.
Absolutely. To give you an example, we went to jewelry stores, they're flourishing, they're still doing well. And we went to a lot of outside venues, outside the traditional racing, just because we looked at the companies that were, fairly strong during the COVID and said, okay, well, these folks probably have some money back that they can afford to spend. And we can enhance what they're doing with our marketing program, because it's, marketing is it's a network, it's creating that pipeline, that conduit, if you will, and opening up different avenues through the marketing partners and strategic opportunities that you have within the industry, or whatever that may be, whether it be in the trucking industry or the jewelry industry or the RV industry, whatever it is. There's conduits that you have that you can work with and try to make things happen. And so that's kind of where we're at right now, is just trying to utilize every opportunity we have and trying to put back, looking at our conduit and saying, okay, well, we can help your company with this. We can help you with, let's just say, credit cards, or we can help you with new unique stuff for your RV, or new unique stuff for your motorhome or your house, or whatever it is. So there's different avenues that, we look at each marketing partner and say, okay, we try to do a background search on them, learn as much as we can on what they do, how they do it, and then what new products that they come out with, and how can we help promote that new product into a Lowe's, if you will, or into a Home Depot, or whatever it is, some place that traditionally they can't get to. And what you do is you do a lot of trading off, like you go into Lowe's and say, hey, look, man, I need 5 foot of shelf space, and I'm going to put Amley motor oil in this shelf space. Okay, I'm going to put you on the race car, and Amley's going to be on the race car. And so, Lowe's is sitting back saying, well, that's a good deal for me. And, Amley's sitting back saying, well, man, I got that in, 2,000 stores. So it's a home run. So it's those type of combinations that you have to put together to make balance out, so that it's a win-win. Because I believe that if someone gives me a nickel, it's my job to give them 10 cents back, because they're not going to stay with you very long if you're not giving them a return on their investment. And that's where, we've been really fortunate with Amley. I mean, we've been with them 19 years. We've given them a positive growth. We've created a lot of different opportunities, and they've given us the tools we needed to go out and race. So it was a win-win deal. And I certainly hope that we have the opportunity to get back to that at some level, going forward. But right now, short term, we gotta figure out how to keep things alive.
Now, we talked about this on the pre-call, and it's something you wanted to hit on, and it's something I found interesting. And you've hit on, you talked about it too, how important the fans are to you and how they keep you going. The fans, man, you're a fan favorite, to say the least. Talk about how they are like, it's literally crowdfunding. How are they trying to help you out?
It's been amazing, because the fans, once, this whole deal happened with Amley and things were suspended and we were all kind of figuring out what we're going to do, the fans started sending emails, friends that work at the racetrack. It just, all these different people were trying to help support us by, here, call this guy, I talked to him, here's an opportunity for, a sponsorship and things like that. And so we've been inundated with emails and text messages from fans, both in the United States and overseas, trying to open doors for us to find a marketing partner that would pick us up right now and keep us going. And that's one thing that you'll never find in any other form of motorsports, is that the loyalty of the NHRA drag racing fan, and Camping World, I believe, is going to see the benefit in that as well. When Marcus signed up with this deal, he's already doing some amazing things with it, but that race fan is so loyal. And when they want Amley product, they're going to go out of their way to find Amley product, to buy it and put it in their car because they sponsor Terry McMillen. And so that whole setup is just been overwhelming to me. Corey and I have just been hammering these things out. And like I said, I bet on any given day, we get 10 to 20 new leads from fans just reaching out and saying, hey man, I see you're still working at it. Try this guy. I reached out, I talked to him, told him to call in, and then, see what we can do from there. So today, Terry McMillen Racing wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the fans. the support of other racers, and certainly, just the inner core working of my wife and Elon Warner and Beverly, everybody that's helped us try to secure that additional funding right now. And it's not over. We're still working at it. We're still fighting. Like I've always said, persistence outweighs resistance. And if we can maintain that, attitude and find a way through this, then we're going to be back in this car sooner than what you think.
Now, you touched on something there as well, that the CEO of Camping World, that they jumped into this. And when I saw them coming in, I'm like, people like there was some negative Nancy's about. I'm like, y'all don't understand this guy. When he jumps into something, he gets elbow deep in his investment, and he proved that by he put it out there. Who needs help coming to the first race in Gainesville? And you're part of that equation too. But I want to get your take first on just seeing that from the title sponsor, the Camping World NHRA series said, I want to get racers to the track. What does that say to you as a nitro racer?
Class act. I mean, he gets it. He understands that he has to make an investment into the sport, but he also understands the activation side of the sport, and that is what he is. If you look at this guy, Marcus has just done an amazing job on how he transitions, whether it be in a truck series or in NHRA, how he transitions and makes things happen, he's offered up, here's money, put it on your car, go to truck race or best drawing or whatever it may be. He's always thinking this, and that's what's really intriguing with him, is that I love his approach, that he just never lets anything rest. Nothing is good enough. He keeps digging for more. He keeps reaching out there, and he pushes the envelope, not just with himself, but with everybody in his business. And so that's why I think this is going to be such a fit for NHRA. And I just honestly believe that he's already made some pretty big statements. I guess in Gainesville, they raced 2 motorhomes on the track, right? Yeah. And he gave them away. He was only going to give one away, but he ended up giving both of them away. That is a class act, not because that he gave 2 motorhomes away, but he's just putting his money and his product, where his mouth's at. And that to me is a guy that just understands marketing 101. And I right now, I don't think there's anybody better than him out there doing it. So, kudos to him and his organization. And, at the same point in time, I want to say thank you for coming in and step up for NHRA, because we certainly needed somebody like this.
Yeah, like I was going to mention that the whole giveaway RV thing. I heard that. I'm like, all right, this guy 110% he looked at the NHRA and probably said, this is the ultimate dog and pony show. We got loud cars, we got rabid fans, we have a target-rich environment for my product. It just I think you're going to see them gathering. They'll do a certain amount this year, but I think it's going to be a data gathering year. They are going to break down their investment to really see what they can do. And I think year 2 is when you're going to see, if things go well, turned up even more.
Well, 100%. I mean, you look at it, there's 600, 700 motorhomes that show up to a race on a national event weekend anymore. And they're not the same motorhomes all the time.
And that's just in the pits. That's right. Not what fans bring it.
Exactly. And so you start looking at this thing and it's like, man, this is this guy's backyard. It's his market. It certainly makes sense. People are going to upgrade to motorhomes. He's going to promote you and give you the opportunity to upgrade to motorhomes. And he's going to do a lot of things that a lot of primary event sponsors wouldn't do. But he has the tools and the means to make that happen. And by doing so, like you said, every good marketing program starts out a little sluggish the first year, but the second year it starts kicking butt. And I think once he gets to a second year, he's never going to look back, and he's going to keep moving on.
Now, I know that with the money on the cars, your fans probably sent you 1,000,001 posts about that. And I saw where the reason why you said you didn't want to do it is because you can't throw a team together that quick. Talk about that for a second, because yes, that's a dream scenario, but like we were saying, you can't go to your 4 bowling buddies and say, hey, let's go run a nitro car this weekend.
Well, you can do that, but it has really some adverse effects. Yeah. I think in our case, what we looked at is that while it was a tremendous offer and a tremendous opportunity for everybody, and certainly we would have loved to have been part of that. You can't go out there and just put a team together, a part-time team, when nobody knows the system, the setup, and all of those things, because everybody has to be on the same page all the way through. And if one area is down just one little bit, the car's going to suffer. And I think for me, the real part of this that really hit home with me is that if we did put a team together, and let's just say we didn't live up to the standards that we put as our benchmark, and we go out there and we hurt the car, and then we do a very poor showing for him, okay, well, he might stop doing that and never do it again in NHRA. That's not good business. More importantly, so I wanted to make sure that if we're going to do this, we can represent him properly, Marcus. And then at the same point in time, I want to make sure that if we did do this and we were successful, that I don't want to underdeliver to any marketing partner out there. My goal is that we're going to go out there, we're going to run 3 qualifiers, we're going to run 3 qualifiers. We're going to do everything we can to make this show a great show. If we go out there and we fail to do that, it is only going to hurt my opportunities down the road to securing another major marketing partner. So there was a lot more at risk than just, tarnishing, the Camping World's name because we weren't prepared properly. It also has a long-term effect of what it's going to do on Terry McMillen Racing. So when you start putting that together and saying, look, we're in this thing long-term, okay, and this short-term thing, while it seems so tempting, it doesn't make business sense because it could hurt both entities and really create a bigger problem than what we know it to be.
Terry, one last question. Your gut feeling right now with things are going, do you think you're going to make it into a car at some point this year?
Well, yeah. Persistence is going to outweigh resistance, and we're doing everything we can to do that. My goal is to get back in the car this year. The car is ready to go for the most part. It's just a matter of getting the funding that we can have the proper team again, and then go out there and race the thing. I won't do it just to go out there and race it, because while I would love it, it's going to hurt all the good parts I have. Then I'm starting from ground zero again, back in the hole with, weak parts and things like that. I want to do it the right way. I want to do it the proper way. I want to do it the way that we've done things in the past, and that is delivering the best package to our partners that we can. And if we can do that, I will be back in a car this year. And if not, hopefully there's next year. But right now we're doing everything we can, still working on marketing partners on a daily basis. And hopefully we can find someone, even if it's for a couple, 3 races, that, helps build the momentum going forward. So if we get 3 more races, that's 3 more truck payments that I don't have to worry about, and 3 more, and then we can work on 3 more and 3 more, and then hopefully get a bunch of the year in. So persistence outweighs resistance. That's our motto. We're not quitting there, and I have no intention of not getting back in that car this year.
Well, Terry, I can tell you right now, your competitors are probably going, man, the last thing we want to deal with is a back half of the season of this cat coming out and ruining everybody's dance party, because that's exactly what you're capable of doing, is being that wild card where someone's making a title run and it's like, oh Lord, I got to race Terry this round, and he's loaded to go.
Yeah, there used to be a day that everybody wanted Terry McMillen first round. Not so much anymore. That's
gotta be a good feeling.
That is an amazing feeling, because it's like, you just like, it doesn't matter if it's Steve Torrance or Tony Schumacher or Antron. It doesn't matter. We have a car that can compete with any of them. Back in the day, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking to myself, geez, we're running Antron Brown, and man, I'm going to have to get on the line on this guy because his car's always going to be consistently fast, and so we got to do things that we normally don't necessarily want to do, but you got to do whatever it takes to win the race. And so today it's different than that. Today, they have to say, oh, now we got Terry this round. This maybe not going to be that pushover anymore.
Well, Terry, thank you so much for coming on the show. And at this point, I like to give my guests their ability to impersonate the old school John Force. And I'll turn it over to you, and you can thank who you want to thank and tell people where they can learn more about your cause and everything else. So the floor is yours, my friend. Use the time to talk about what you got to talk about.
Hey man, just come visit us at terrymcmillen.com. That's our website. You can certainly text me. My phone number's on the website as well. As far as John Force, man, there's only one John Force, but man, I got out there got 1,000 foot, man, and I seen Elvis. Elvis was talking to me, dude. I'm telling you, Elvis was all over the place. I couldn't believe it. I'm upside down, spinning in circles. But man, hey, Memphis, Tennessee, Elvis, baby, we're okay. That's the best I got.
You know what? There's only been one other person that has taken me up on the offer to do that. That was Alexis DeJorio. And like that, now you are at the, like, if this was like, well, what was that show? Not the Grand Tour, the other one, where they had the board where the people raced. It's escaping my mind with the British guys. You're now. People are gonna hate me for that. I can't remember. I cannot remember the name of the show. Top Gear. Top Gear.
Yep.
You are now at the leaderboard on Top Gear. That done over with. That's I anoint you the champion now. But
awesome, man. Thank you so much for allowing us to be on here. And like I said, I just can't thank everybody enough. You guys for jumping on here and just helping us get the word out that we're looking for marketing partners. We're working hard at it, and I just want to find a partner that it's going to be a win-win, that everybody wins, and and then we can build from there.
Awesome, Terry. Of course, I've got to thank our sponsors that made this possible. This episode for AFR Performance Distributors and ProCharger came on board to help us out. But again, Terry, thank you so much. Hopefully I'll see you at Norwalk and we can talk about this fun time in person at Norwalk.
Sounds like a great opportunity, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Take care, man.
You too.